This is the special Seeking Alpha report published on February 14th, 2018. A brighter regulated future for Bitcoin? Summary. The U.S. appears cautiously optimistic about imposing limited regulations on Bitcoin. When we look at Bitcoin trading at 10,866, it appears that the price is at the extreme below the mean of the relative implied volatility, which offers a better than 95% probability that a reversion will occur back up to the mean of 13,000. If we see a correction to the price of gold in the low 1300 or so, it is a great opportunity to add to the long side. A brighter regulated future for Bitcoin? Bitcoin dropped significantly last week after the Chinese government banned foreign cryptocurrencies in its ongoing attempt to rein in Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. The U.S. still considering what to do, if anything, about such currencies. While the U.S. Senate appears to be meandering towards supporting Bitcoin, or at least regulating it to some limited degree, with the market capitalization of Bitcoin standing at about 115 billion, it appears to be far too large an asset for governments to ignore. U.S. Senate last week, before the U.S. Senate Banking Committee, Housing and Urban Affairs Committee, Securities and Exchange Commission Chairman SEC Jay Clayton and Commodities Futures Trading Commission CFTC Chairman Christopher Giancarlo debated, quote, what can be regulated, what should be regulated, and how, while offering a broader outlook on the long-term future of virtual currency markets and blockchain technology, end of quote. The testimony outlined the three parts of cryptocurrencies, which could replace dollars, initially coin offerings, ICOs, which are like a stock offering, and distributed ledger technologies, which is the technical system usually referred to as blockchain. The SEC Clayton testified about fraud's concerns related to ICOs, while the CFTC's Giancarlo focused more on the potential of the emerging cryptocurrency market. Giancarlo defended the value of Bitcoin, explaining how Bitcoin is mined and how the process correlates with price at certain times. Clayton was unconvinced. There are a lot of smart people who think there is something to the value of cryptocurrency and the international exchange, and I am not seeing those benefits manifest themselves in the market yet. I look at this from the perspective of Main Street investors, and they should understand that, end of quote. Clayton mentioned market volatility, which makes using Bitcoin as a currency extremely volatile. Giancarlo said that the CFTC could use past data to analyze Bitcoin trading and to be able to detect instances of fraud and manipulation in the future. Both chairs commented on concerns about the unregulated nature of cryptocurrency exchanges and the possibility that investors might be misled into believing that such exchanges were regulated. Giancarlo warned, quote, to be clear, the CFTC does not regulate the dozens of virtual currency trading platforms here and abroad, end of quote. The CFTC does not regulate that such exchanges have cyber protection or platform safeguards, which are required of other exchanges. Clayton recommended that various agencies coordinated the attempt to better uniform investors about unregulated trading platforms. He said, quote, I think our Main Street investor look at these virtual currency platforms and assume that they are regulated on the same way that the stock is regulated, and as I said, it's far from that, and I think we should address that, end of quote. In relation to ICOs, Clayton said, I believe every ICO I've seen is a security. You can call it a coin, but if it functions as a security, it is a security. Those who engage in semantic gymnastics or elaborate restructuring exercises is an effort to avoid having a coin be a security are squarely in the crosshairs of our enforcement provision. Senator Mark Warner called for a more coordinated effort to regulate cryptocurrencies, which both chairs supported. Warner was optimistic about the future of such currencies. He said, quote, "The potential writ large amounts of cryptos assets and the underlying blockchain could be as transformational as wireless was years ago. I think we're going to need a much more coordinated effort," end of quote. The focus of the hearing seemed to be far from any doomsday scenario for the cryptocurrencies, instead focusing on regulating away the worst excesses of fraud, theft, and manipulation from the cryptocurrency markets. The market liked the hearing. Bitcoin jumped about 70 to 7,650 on Tuesday after falling below 6,000 the day before. Bitcoin, the dollar, and gold, an intra-market relationship. Based on my analysis of the relationship between Bitcoin and the US dollar index and gold, I feel that there is a very close relationship between these three assets. Bitcoin has become a challenge to the price of gold and the US dollar as a fiat currency. If we look at the weekly chart going back to November 2015, the price of gold at the time had bottomed at a low of 1,046. Bitcoin was over 1,000 and the dollar topped out at a high of 98.34. The price of gold then rallied to about 1371.80 in July 2016. Bitcoin went up to 1638, surpassing the price of gold at 1356.60. From roughly September 2016, the US dollar rallied to a high of 101.19, while the price of gold collapsed again to a low of 11.24. And Bitcoin corrected back down to 966. The fact that Bitcoin surpassed the price of gold established Bitcoin as a world-class asset. From January 2017, the dollar began to collapse to the current levels last week of 88.25. The price of gold rose from the low of December 2016 of about $1,127 an ounce, and to the high that we saw in September 2017 of 1362. Bitcoin, once it crossed the value of gold, exploded to the upside, establishing itself as a world-class asset, reaching a high of about 20,000 on December 25th, 2017. While the US dollar made a new low of 88.25, gold then held steady around 1350 levels with a recent high in January 2018 of 1370.50. The key is to define whether Bitcoin is a currency or a commodity. It appears that Bitcoin has elements of a security, commodity, and a currency. The unclear metrics that we are beginning to define more clearly and are related to the question of where the equilibrium of Bitcoin is, or the mean or the average price in relation to gold and the US dollar rests. It is clear that Bitcoin has established itself as a world-class asset, and even though we have seen roughly 60% correction since December highs, when you look at the tremendous growth in Bitcoin since the inception, the rate of return exceeds anywhere from 35,000%, a historic benchmark that has been set. Bitcoin appears to be one part currency and one part commodity. Bitcoin regulation. One of the major concerns that regulators have right now, according to the U.S. Banking Committee hearing, is whether cryptocurrency technology is being used in a black market transaction or to avoid U.S. sanctions. It is clear that the application of blockchain technology is what is behind this incredible move in the price of Bitcoin. I believe that Bitcoin, once the dust settles, will still be around, as opposed to all the other crypto exchanges that have appeared. One has to be cautious about how these exchanges are representing themselves. The majority of them are completely fraudulent. It is no surprise that we enter into this new class of assets, which within 2 years explode to exceed 25 to 30 billion in market cap. is causing regulators great concern. They are beginning to try to understand the mechanics and logistics of the cryptocurrency world by adding personnel to study the market. They are just beginning to learn themselves about the new market. So I question how competent and capable they will be able to regulate this phenomenon in the near future. It is my belief, as this technology spreads, will we have a Fed cryptocurrency? I believe it is a transformational technology that it is leading toward a transparent price discovery process, and we can probably use the same technology to manage inventory and people, while avoiding the fraudulent processes of the middlemen who often are involved in these transactions. It is my belief that as Bitcoin begins to gain more respectability, supported by the U.S. Congress, that we are headed toward is that as the government recognizes it as a currency, there is a strong possibility that the Federal Reserve might introduce a crypto Federal Reserve coin to challenge Bitcoin and the new technology blockchain. For the US dollar, we expect it to continue to decline into May, and any rallies over the short term into the 91-92 area should be sold, since we expect to see a tremendous amount of supply coming into the market at those levels. With regard to Bitcoin, it appears that the market has found a level of support as we corrected below 10,000, making a low of 9,901 on January 22nd, and touching below 8,400 just a week ago. If these levels hold, it could serve as the base for the next leg up, which potentially could test what we have identified so far as the mean or the average price of Bitcoin, which is about 13,000. When we look at Bitcoin trading at around 10,000, it appears that the price is at the extreme below the mean of the relative implied volatility, which offers a better than 95% probability that the reversion will occur back up to the mean of 13,000. Let's take a look at the supply and demand levels in gold for next week and see if we can identify some trading opportunities. In relation to the supply and demand factors for gold coming into this coming week, on February 9, gold closed at 1316. We used our variable changing price momentum indicator, the VCPMI, to analyze gold for the coming week. The first filter, the trend momentum indicator, which is at 1319, indicates that the market was bearish coming into this week, but our VCPMI algorithm also tells us that if the gold closes about 1319, it would negate this bearish short-term trend to neutral. This is the first level, if you short the market, that you can use as a reversal pivot point to identify when the market may turn neutral from bearish. The second filter is the weekly VCPMI, the average price for the next week. Gold closed at 1316 Friday, below the 1325 average price, indicating that we're coming into this week slightly bearish. But it also tells you that if gold closes above 1325, it would negate this bearishness to neutral. Once we extrapolate the average price, we can identify the extreme above and below the mean by closing below 1325. The gold market has activated a signal to exit short positions between 1300 and 1285 and reverse and go long. If you go long, you can place your stop at 1285. If the market comes back up above 1300 and through 1300, your target will be 1325, which was met today. A second close about 1325 activated the signal for you to exit your long positions at 1340 to 1365. These levels were accomplished today. February the 14th, as I am publishing this report. Conclusion. As we come into next week, the price action of the market will validate what we already are beginning to see is an oversold condition in most of these assets, which include the harmonic relationship between the daily, weekly, and monthly trends. When we identify the relationship, which is unusual, we get a strong confirmation that prices have come down to an alignment of price and time. As we move forward, what will drive prices will be the supply and demand volume that we get when we identify the extreme above and below the mean. If we see a correction in the price of gold to the low 1300 or so, it is a great opportunity to add to the long side, even though we have seen a correction a little deeper. We still have the market trading the 9-day moving average of 1319 above the 18-day moving average of 1303, which is a solid level of support and coincides with the first level of demand at 1300. A close about 1319 confirms the resumption with a target of 1325 and targets at the upper end of the extreme above the mean of 1340 to 1365. I believe that when this cycle is complete, gold will retest a high of 1365 over the near term. As I'm writing this report, you can see here on my TradeStation platform that the price of gold has accomplished the targets by reaching the high that we see here of 1358.60. The second target of 1365 is the sell 2 level that you see basically, and we're looking for prices tomorrow possibly to reach those levels. It is unusual as I write the report and as I'm publishing this for your benefit that we have accomplished the targets that we published in Seeking Alpha.